Hi everybody, welcome to Out of the Gate, Daily Racing Form's weekend handicapping preview program. My name is Matt Bernier. Thanks so much for joining. Let's take a look and see what is on tap in this week's edition of Out of the Gate. Little bit of a skeleton crew this week. Illman and Beer are off elsewhere, so I'll be the one driving this thing along, but good news is I'm going to get some help from all of our great contributors here at the Daily Racing Form. We'll take a look at the Queen's Plate, the Bashford Manor, and the Mother Goose. The Queen's Plate up at Woodbine. I'll take a look at that race and then throw it over to Craig Milkowski for the Timeform US Pace Projector segment. The Bashford Manor, I'll give you my 2 cents and then throw it over to Nicole Russo for her pedigree pick segment regarding the 2-year-olds down at Churchill Downs. And the Mother Goose at Belmont Park, I will give you a selection and then throw it to David Aragona for Timeform US Spotlight segment about the Mother Goose at Belmont Park. I'll come back, give you a best bet, maybe a little bit of a bonus, give you 2 horses. Maybe you want to keep an eye on at Woodbine on Saturday afternoon, and we'll get you out of here in good order. So let's get things going. Let's break out of the gate and take a look at this week's Horse Watch. Things will look a little bit different this week with me rolling solo. It's going to look a little bit more maybe like my podcast looks, the Matt Bernier Show. My horse watch this week is a 2-year-old filly. It's that time of year. We're inching closer and closer to Saratoga and Del Mar, and the 2-year-olds are coming out of the woodwork, and we've already seen some good ones. This is a 2-year-old filly out in Southern California that debuted on June the 23rd for Simon Callahan. You can see the chart right here. Her name is Amalfi Sunrise. She went out there and strutted her stuff. We're going to take a look at the replay inside formulator right now. You're going to see she's coming up on the outside in sort of those blue and white silks. Looks like she's going to blow right on by on the far turn. She'll be a little bit wide coming off the turn, but I think she's just on the green side. You'll see eventually she straightens out, but you're going to see her head cocked out to the grandstand. I just love the way that she finishes here. This is a very impressive effort. A 2-year-old daughter of Constitution out of an Empire Maker mare. We know Simon Callahan has had tremendous success with 2-year-olds, specifically fillies, over the past number of years. And look at the way that this girl draws off geared down. This is a visually very impressive debut for this horse, and it sounds like the plan is for her to go on, make her second lifetime start in a graded stakes race down at Del Mar on August the 3rd. That would be the Grade 2 Sorrento Stakes, 88 Beyer speed figure here for Amalfi Sunrise in her career debut at 4.5 furlongs. I don't think added ground is going to be a problem for her, and it looks like we are on to bigger and better things. Amalfi Sunrise, a name that you're going to want to throw in your DRF Horse Watch going forward. Expect to see her in the Grade 2 Sorrento in just a short amount of time down at Del Mar for Simon Callahan and company. Let's take a look at some horses that are already in stakes caliber company. We'll go up to the first leg of the Canadian Triple Crown on Saturday afternoon. Let's take a look at this year's Queen's Plate from Woodbine. First leg of the Canadian Triple Crown will be run Saturday up at Woodbine, the $1 million Queen's Plate, going 1.25 miles on synthetic. Let's take a look at the field. Keep in mind it's also the DRF Bets Race of the Day. You can download free formulator past performances on the Race of the Day page on DRF.com and handicap through this field. Come up with your opinions. Make your bets on DRF Bets. You know the drill by now. If you want expanded stakes previews for all of the races that we'll go over this weekend, over on video.drf.com as well as the Racing Forms YouTube channel. The horse that they're all going to need to beat from a talent standpoint, in my opinion anyway, is the morning line favorite that is Avies Flatter, breaking from the far outside. My concern as more and more time goes by with Avies Flatter is perhaps added ground isn't necessarily going to make him better. Maybe that could actually be a little bit of a weakness for him. We do know from a talent standpoint, though, he is one of, if not the best horses in the race. We'll go back to his victory in the Transylvania. This was down at Keeneland earlier this year. You see him in these purple silk splitting horses right now. He's going to go on and finish what I think is a very game and gutsy performance. He came back, ran in the American turf at Churchill Downs on Derby weekend. I didn't think it was a great effort from him. I think we have seen better, and we will see better going forward. It's not that I'm super against him in this spot on Saturday in the Queen's Plate. But boy, that 10th furlong, that just makes me a little bit leery. I'm not totally convinced that Avies Flatter is going to get better as the distances get longer, especially breaking from post 14. Meanwhile, the horse that I do like in this race, I think the added ground is going to be to her benefit. And notice I said her because I'm going to go with the only filly in this field. I'm going to go with the winner of the Woodbine Oaks. We'll take a look at the run on June the 8th from Desert Ride. Desert Ride, you're going to see back here, way back here in those familiar red and sort of cream silks of Samsun Farm. This is a race where you look at it, the pace is holding up for the most part, and it kind of looks like she's a bit of a no-hoper under the whip right now. The big thing for me, she rallies as wide as she does, and I like the way that she levels off and finishes down the stretch. And as I made mention, with Avi's flatter, I'm not convinced that added ground is going to be to his benefit. Maybe a horse like Skywire, it'll work for him. But I think this filly right here, Desert Ride, is going to appreciate the distance. Maybe this is a little bit of a combination we're seeing right now of tired horses and her appreciating added ground. I just really think that she'll really benefit from that extra eighth of a mile. She's in good form. She's not that far off the main boys in this spot as far as numbers are concerned. Give me the number 1, Desert Ride, the girl to upset the boys and win this year's Queen's Plate on Saturday afternoon. Let's throw it over to Craig Milkowski, see what he has to say about the Queen's Plate using the Timeform US Pace Projector. And after that, we'll come back, do a little bit of handicapping of some 2-year-olds down at Churchill Downs on Saturday. We'll take a look at the Bashford Manor.
Hi, this is Craig Milkowski at Timeform US for this week's edition of Out of the Gate. In my Pace Projector segment this week, I'm going to take a look at the $1 million Queen's Plate being run on Woodbine Saturday as the 10th race. You can see on our preview page, it's drawn a huge field of 14. But surprisingly, for a field this big, and especially for younger horses, this is for 3-year-olds, there's not a whole lot of speed in here. We only have 2 horses listed as tracker. You can see number 5, One Bad Boy, has a 110 early pace rating, which is quite a gap on the rest of the field. The other tracker in here, the number 9 horse, is a big long shot and only has a 69 Timeform US early pace rating. So he's not as shown anywhere near the front, not really considered a contender. Normally in these situations with the pace projector, we would show this as a race that favors horses on or near the lead, but we don't do that at races at 1.25 miles and longer, and it's for good reason. Our stats have shown us that even horses who are able to make an easy lead have to have more than just that early speed to have an advantage. Let's take a quicker look at the pace projector before we start looking at some of the horses in here. You can see a few notes. We have blinkers are added to the number 2. It does move him up a little bit from where he would be shown otherwise. And we also note that we don't have the 6 on here, and that's because he's a deep closer. He hasn't shown much early speed at all, and he just won't fit in the pace projector, so he's basically off the screen here. I will start by looking at number 5, One Bad Boy. He's the horse with that big early speed edge, but he's a horse I'm actually kind of against in here. He's the 7-2 second choice, and despite that speed advantage, there's a few things I don't like. One, he's never been further than 1 mile. He only tried the synthetic one time at Golden Gate in his last start, and that was an off-the-turf race. He ran decent enough. His speed figure of 106 is competitive in here. He had run a 109 on turf last time, which sometimes translates to synthetics. Sometimes it doesn't. But I just don't like that he's stretching out an extra 1/4 mile. And I also don't like those red fractions he's been running. That doesn't really bode well for horses trying to get more distance, particularly in this case when it's an added 2 furlongs. One of the main contenders that I do like in here is Desert Ride. She's actually a filly, but fillies have had plenty of success in the Queen's Plate in the past. And there's a few things I do want to note about her. In her last race, she only got a Timeform US speed figure of 100. But you'll note in our race rating box, which I've circled here, we have a B. And that tells us that we broke the race out. Now, my assistant actually does Woodbine figures, but I do look over the work that he does. I trust him implicitly, but we have a very good relationship. But what I noted was that this race was broken out, and it's actually one that could have been faster, as much as probably 6 or 7 points faster. To me, it's not really that important in here. I think this filly has a big chance. A couple reasons. She has the best late speed rating in the race, which I think is important at this distance, particularly at a synthetic surface. She's an improving filly. And I just think she's got a big shot from the 1 hole to come running late. I don't think she has to be way back. She's a horse who can get some decent position, especially from the rail. And I think she'll be finishing best. Another one of the contenders is number 10, Skywire. He's a horse that He ran very well last time. There was a slow pace. He was 3 lengths off of it. I'm sure he was pace compromised, but he was only beaten a length in the Grade 3 Marine Stakes at Woodbine over this same surface. He got a nice 109 time form U.S. speed figure that day. He had run a 110 the last time out from a tracking position, sitting just off the lead in second. So I definitely think he is one that's a strong contender. He's 4-1 on the morning line, so I do like him a bit. Next, we're going to look at number 11, Tone Broke. He's trained by Steve Asmussen, which kind of weird. I actually looked him up in Formulator, DRF, and also at Equibase. And he hasn't run a lot of horses on synthetic surfaces lately. He only showed 3 in the last 5 years. He didn't have any wins there. This is a horse where I just feel like they're taking a shot because he did run very well last time on the dirt on Preakness Day. He lost to King for a Day, who came back to defeat Maximum Security at Monmouth Park in a small stakes as those two prep for probably the Haskell. So I think it was a strong race. I'm not sure about the surface here. He's a dangerous horse. If he were a longer price, I might be willing to take a chance on him, but he's a horse I'm not going to use. He does show improving form. You'll notice that I just lined through the 2 Dubai races. That seemed to be a bit of a disaster. I'm not going to put any stock in those, but my questions with him, as I mentioned, is the surface, his trainer shipping in on a surface he doesn't usually run horses on. So I'm going to avoid this horse at what will be a short price. The other favorite is actually the morning line favorite. The number 14 is Avies Flatter. This is a horse I definitely have some question marks on. One is that 14 post. I know it's a long run to the first turn, going 1.25 miles, but it can still cause some problems. I think the horse is probably going to lose some ground. But the bigger concern I have is I think this horse actually likes turf better than synthetic. When we look at his speed figures, despite being 2 for 2 on a synthetic surface, speed figures paint a little different story. His 2 lowest speed figures in 6 career starts have come on synthetic. I think he might be a little bit better animal on the turf. I mean, if he was 10 or 15 to 1, I might take a shot that he could transfer that form, but he isn't. So I'm just not going to do that. I'm going to be against him. So I've narrowed it down. I don't like 3 of the top 4 morning line choices. So the horses I'm going to go with are number 1, the Philly Desert Ride. Like I said, she may have actually run faster than that 100 time form U.S. speed figure we're giving her credit for. But even if she didn't, even if the figure is spot on, I liked her late kick. I like that she's stretching out in distance. I think she'll handle it well. And I think she's going to offer a good price. She's going to be my win bet in here. I am going to play her in some exactas with number 10, Skywire. I think he ran a strong race. I think he likes the surface. If you ignore the race at Turfway where he didn't run particularly well, he's been in good form. He has really good speed figures on the synthetic. So I think he's the main contender to my selection. So that does it for me for this Queen's Plate edition of Out of the Gate, and I'll see you again next week.
10 2-year-olds scheduled to go 3/4 mile in the 11th race at Churchill Downs Saturday afternoon. Let's take a look at the field for the Grade 3 Bashford Manor. They'll be running beneath the Twin Spires. This is an interesting race because it feels like you have a couple horses that really have nice established form leading into this, and it would be crazy to say that it's a slam dunk that they're going to go out there and win because these are so lightly raced and they're 2-year-olds and they have the right to jump up at any time. But a horse like Phantom Boss on the inside seems like he's going to be very difficult to deal with for Jorge Parabon. Said some good things out in Southern California in each of his 2 lifetime starts. Nearly defeated 4 Left in his career debut. 4 Left came back and won the Tremont at Belmont Park just a couple of weeks back. And then the most recent run for Phantom Boss broke the maiden impressively, earned a 78 Beyer, a 95 raw time form U.S. rating. Both of those highest last out figures in the field. Also defeated the second place finisher, Pas de Panique. He came back and broke his maiden in his next start with a 60 Beyer. So there's plenty to like about Phantom Boss. The inside draw I don't love. It's a little bit of a tough spot. Shipping across country, stretching out from 4.5 to 6. That's why I'm going to the opposite end. I'm going to go with the far outside. Let's take a look at Rowdy Yates. Rowdy Yates, this is a nice 2-year-old son of Morning Line, trained by Steve Asmussen. You see the 64 Beyer speed figure he earned here in his career debut, won by nearly 5 lengths. And this little short comment here, saying widened, gear down, couldn't agree more. visually very, very impressive. I thought he did everything right. And I think this outside draw is going to give him some options. I think Ricardo Santana is going to be able to sit and play the break. If for some reason Phantom Boss doesn't break alertly and go to the front, Rowdy Yates could be controlling speed. If Rowdy Yates doesn't want to go, he can sit just off, take up that perfect stalking position. You see the most recent run would take a look in Formulator. He did go gate to wire, and no, there wasn't a lot of passing or running behind him that went on. And you look at the buyers that have come back out of that race, hit or miss. The runner-up more or less matched up that previous run, but you did have a couple of horses improve their buyers in their second lifetime starts pretty significantly in the 11 and 13 point ranges. So this is an instance where I look at a horse like Rowdy Yates. I say, I like the connections. I think they do a very good job of getting these 2-year-olds ready to roll in their next starts. The other thing you may want to keep in mind, the 64 buyer for Rowdy Yates, sure, maybe that doesn't look super impressive. Still one of those things. Timeform US had that rating as a 94. If you want to talk about a 20-point differential, take 20 off of a 94. That's a 74. That stacks up much more favorably to that 78 that Phantom Boss earned most recently. I think it's a fun race, but frankly, I think it does go through those two horses. Let's see what Nicole Russo has to say about the Bashford Manor in her pedigree pick segment, and then we'll take a quick break. But don't go anywhere, because we'll come back. We'll take a look at the big race from Belmont Park, the Mother Goose, and then we'll get you out of here with some best bets for this weekend. So let's throw it into Nicole Russo with the pedigree pick segment.
Hi, everyone. Nicole Russo coming to you for Out of the Gate with more on the Bashford Manor. As you take another look at the field, I want to mention two horses in here who represent stallions from this outstanding freshman sire class. Two Last Words, who is by Commissioner, and Silent Malice by Palace Malice. Now, both those stallions excelled at longer distances and got better into their 3-year-old years and beyond. But these two youngsters, a great example of how you need to look at both sides of a pedigree while handicapping, as they both have female sides that should sharpen them up with some speed and adding some precocity as well. Now, Two Last Words won his debut in a 5-furlong off-the-turf race at Indiana, going 6 furlongs for the Bashford Manor, and I do think Commissioner will certainly help him get that extra furlong. The son of AP Indy was a close second in the Belmont Stakes and a graded winner 2 turns. I'll also tell you that he had my favorite walk in this year's freshman class, just a terrific racy mover. Now, Two Last Words is the first foal out of his dam, who is a full sister to Pegasus Wind, third in the Grade 1 Champagne as a juvenile. She's also a half to Riley's Dancer, a stakes place juvenile who produced a stakes place juvenile. This is the extended family of Wee Miss Artie, who won the Grade 1 Breeders' Futurity on the synthetic track at Keeneland when he was 2. I think Two Last Words could be a live long shot based on this pedigree combination of juvenile ability and the added stamina to get that extra furlong. Now, Silent Malice should really be a long shot as he comes into this as a maiden, does have experience at Churchill Downs, and he's from the first crop of 2013 Belmont winner Palace Malice, who turned in one of his best efforts the next year in the Met Mile, of course, a stallion-making race, going the 1-turn mile at Belmont, gunning by Golden Sense. Now, Palace Malice by classic sire Curlin might get 1-turn horses, but should overall impart stamina. And I think Silent Malice is another who will appreciate the 6 furlongs and beyond. Damn Sunshine and Silence by sprint champion Speightstown won at distances from 5.5 furlongs to 1 mile and 70 yards. Both her prior starters are sprint winners, and this is the extended family of Mayo on the Side, who won the Grade 1 Humana Distaff over Azeri at 7 furlongs. Thanks for tuning in this week to Out of the Gate. We'll be back with more on the weekend's action after a short break.
Are you a horse player looking to raise your game? For over 120 years, expert handicappers have relied on Daily Racing Form as their must-have source for news and data, featuring exclusive buyer speed figures, Timeform US pace figures, and integrated replays. DRF Formulator is the most powerful handicapping tool on the market today. Use what the pros use. Go to drf.com/formulator and enter code DRFTV to get your first card free. DRF.com. Raise your game.
So you think horse racing's all about fancy hats and mint juleps?
But horse racing is a big business in the Commonwealth, from the breeding shed to the racetrack.
It's all part of a multi-billion-dollar industry.
So I bet you're wondering, where do I start?
We all have the same answer.
U of L,
U of L.
the University of Louisville.
We're all graduates of the Equine Industry Program.
So what are you waiting for?
The U of L Equine Industry Program has been developing leaders for over 32 years. Apply today.
Welcome back to Out of the Gate. Let's take a look at the main event from Belmont Park on Saturday afternoon. This is the field of 3-year-old fillies that will be going in the Grade 2 Mother Goose. As always, head on over to video.drf.com or the Racing Forums YouTube channel for expanded stakes previews. This is a short field going 1 mile and a 16th, and all eyes will be on Chad Brown's entrant, the number 1 Dunbar Road. She was visually very impressive in a victory most recently at Belmont Park against older horses, non-winners of One Other Than Company. We're actually going to go back to her run 2 starts back. This was her second lifetime start. She is the number 6 in those familiar green silks for owner Peter Brandt. She's going to rally quite nicely. Again, maybe it wasn't the best effort of her career, but keep in mind, when she ran this race, it was her second lifetime start. She was stretching out in distance, facing winners for the first time, trying to rally from off at a Gulfstream Park. That's a lot to ask of any horse, let alone a second-time starter and a filly taking on winners for the first time at a graded stakes race. She got to Belmont most recently. She was visually very impressive, went off and won for fun, won like a good thing. Like she might actually be one of those 3-year-old fillies that could continue to develop down the road, and you say, you know what? We haven't been totally impressed with the 3-year-olds we've seen so far. Maybe this is an opportunity for a horse like Dunbar Road to come in and say, I'm going to be boss of this division going forward. I'm going to take over. And then maybe we'll eventually get some sort of a showdown between her and a filly like Gorana, who is also in Chad Brown's barn. One thing at a time. She needs to go out and take care of business here on Saturday afternoon in the Mother Goose. I didn't find anybody else that I was really that interested in trying to beat her with. I'm just going to chalk out. She's probably going to be 1-5 or 2-5 when it's all said and done, but it's Dunbar Road for me in the Mother Goose. Let's throw it over to David Aragona for the Timeform US Spotlight, see what he thinks of this year's Mother Goose, and after that we'll come back and get you out of here in good order with some best bets.
Hi everyone, I'm David Aragona with this week's Timeform US Spotlight. I'm going to take a look at the Grade 2 Mother Goose on Saturday at Belmont Park. Drew a 6-horse field and it's featuring a pretty heavy favorite, the number 1 Dunbar Road, who I made 4-5 on the morning line. She's going to be tough to beat. Before we get to her PPs, let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector of this race, because it's an interesting situation. This race features that new characterization that we added to the Timeform US pace projector, no speed. You see the number 3 Safta is predicted to be on the lead over the number 1 Dunbar Road and the number 4 Geltrin, but you see that gray bar indicating no speed, and what that indicates is that the horses that are projected to be towards the front in this race are not necessarily front-running types, so they might not be horses that are able to take advantage of a slow pace if they do indeed go slowly up front. We'll talk about that a little more in relation to Safta in a little bit, because she might not be the greatest example of a horse that's on the lead in a no-speed situation, but I think there's no question that the number 1 Dunbar Road and the number 4 Geltrin are not really front-running types, so I don't think they'll be challenging for the early lead, and it could just be a real rider's race. Moving on to that favorite Dunbar Road, she is just way the horse to beat. Looking at her past performances, she was impressive in her debut at Gulfstream. Chad Brown got very ambitious, coming right back in the Grade 2 Gulfstream Park Oaks, and she gave a really good account of herself that day, finishing a fine second to Champagne Anyone, who's a nice horse. The form of that race has really been bolstered since then, as third-place finisher Cookie Dough came back to run well subsequently, and the fourth-place finisher Point of Honor came back and actually won the Black-Eyed Susan, so that was a strong race. Dunbar Road was entered in the Kentucky Oaks, got stuck on the also eligible list, just didn't get into that race. It's probably a blessing in disguise because Chad Brown got to take an easier route into this race by running her in a non-winners of 1 allowance race last time. She was impressive that day. She wasn't beating the strongest field, but she won by almost 6 lengths, got a 1:14 Timeform US speed figure, which is the highest number in this field. She's been training very well into this race. We already know she likes the track and the distance. I just think she's going to be really tough to beat. I don't like to heavily endorse strong favorites like this. She's going to be 4-5 or probably lower than that, but I just couldn't find an alternative, and I think she is going to be very difficult for this field to beat. Her main rival is probably the number 4 Geldrin, who is kind of the other classy horse in this race. She won the Grade 2 Davona Dale 3-back in a shocking upset. She was 51-1 that day, but she beat nice horses in Cookie Dough and Champagne Anyone, the same horses that Dunbar Road ran against in the Gulfstream Park Oaks. Geldrin did not handle the 2 turns and the step up in class, the Kentucky Oaks 2-back. But she really seemed to appreciate turning back to 1 turn in the Acorn last time. I don't want to get carried away. She was just picking up pieces that day. She was never going to be a real threat to Guarana and Serengeti Empress, who are just superior fillies to what's in this Mother Goose. But Geldrin did run well to be 3rd. She earned a 1:12 time Form US speed figure, which puts her in the mix here. She was on the rail early, but she angled off the rail late. The rail was the place to be on that Belmont Stakes Saturday. And I just think she makes a little bit of sense as a horse to use underneath. I don't think she's going to beat Dunbar Road, but she's a horse that could pick up the pieces once again in this Mother Goose. A horse that I think could hang on for a piece of this that's going to be a better price is the number 3 Safta, the horse that is projected to be on the lead in that pace projector. Now, I said that Safta probably isn't the best example of a horse that's leading in a no-speed situation, because while she wasn't a front-runner at the beginning of her career, she's gained more speed through racing, and you see last time out, she was actually right on top of the pace through a situation that was a very fast pace. You see all of those red color-coded pace figures in the Timeform US running line, and she really stopped to a walk at the end of that race. If you're watching the replay, she was coming home so slowly. The final 16th of a mile was running 7 2/5 seconds, which is just glacial. But she went so fast in the early going, I can kind of forgive her for slowing down so much at the end of the race. And she still earned a respectable 1:11 time from US speed figure, which is bumped up off the final time number because of that fast pace that she was a part of. Joel Rosario, he can be aggressive at times, and I think he's going to put her on the lead here. I would expect she can back down the pace a little bit because I don't think Dunbar Road or Geldrin will be that aggressively ridden. So maybe Safta can hang on for a piece of it because she's the other horse in this race with the speed figures to put her in the mix. It's a step up in class, but she showed her class 3 back in that Gulfstream Park Oaks when she was only 4 lengths behind Dunbar Road, and she's arguably improved since then. So I just want to play a straight exacta, 1 over the 3. I'm going to play Dunbar Road over Safta and the exacta in the Mother Goose. So that's how I'm going to go about it in a situation where I just can't take a strong shot against the heavy favorite. Now let's send it back to the studio.
Time for the best bet segment here on Out of the Gate. Now, with the fellas off this week, things are going to be a little bit different here. And I understand there are some of you that listen and watch that just, you look at these best bets and you go, well, if they don't win, they're not any good. Maybe that's the case. Maybe you just want to boil it down to that. For me, the best bet segment is about either trying to find some sort of a horse that's interesting in a price or find a short-priced horse that I want to build some multi-race bets around. This week, I'm going to give you 2 horses. So it's not actually a best bet. It's best bets. It's 2 horses that I'm very anxious to see what I can do with them on Saturday afternoon. If they run well, great. If they don't, it's part of the game, unfortunately. Go through a million different races. You try to find some good information and try to offer up some good opinions for you guys to take advantage of. Hopefully we do that at Woodbine here on Saturday. Let's start off with the horse that I think is a much more likely win contender. We'll go to the 9th race. It's the Grade 1 Highlander going 6 furlongs on the outer turf course. Keep in mind this weekend they unveiled the inner turf course up at Woodbine. 6 furlongs on the outer turf course. You've got a number of really nice, talented horses in here. Caribou Club coming back off of a long layoff. We didn't see him, or we haven't seen him, since he ran over in Dubai. Extravagant Kid down to the inside. There was a horse I made a horse watch a few weeks back here on Out of the Gate. His name is Wet Your Whistle. And I've been very impressed with Wet Your Whistle through basically, well, let's say through each of his 2 most recent starts. I don't want to say through all 10 lifetime starts, but his 2 most recent races have been spectacular in my opinion. And again, I've made it clear, turf sprints, not really my bag, but I can usually tell a good horse when I see one. Here is Wet Your Whistle. He's going to be out here on the far outside. And I said when I made him the horse watch, we didn't get to see the turn move. But the turn move is when this horse really puts the boots to the field. And look at him loop up on the far outside. It's as if he's running 3 gears faster than everyone else. He carries that full head of steam, rounds the far turn, levels off beautifully, and goes for home. Wet Your Whistle now tries Graded Stakes Company after winning this race. This was the $79,000 Get Serious Stakes down at Monmouth. He goes up into Grade 1 Company in the Highlander. He is 10-1 on the morning line. I have a very difficult time imagining he's going to be 10-1 come post time. I could see him being half that, in that 9-2, 5-1 range. If he's 10-1, I'll be taking out a new mortgage. But wet your whistle, I think he's got a big chance in here. To me, I think he's just a really talented turf sprinter. I want to give him a look. He would be my best bet as far as most likely winner is concerned of these two. But if you're playing Woodbine on Saturday and you're looking for a horse that's going to be a giant price, just look a few races earlier. We'll go to race number 6, the King Edward. 1 mile, outer turf course, 1-turn mile. This is a horse, number 4, Savage Battle. We're going to go back to his most recent run. Now, this was his first start off of a few-month layoff in the Connaught Cup. He is down on the inside. He's the number 2 this day. He's the number 4 on Saturday. We're going to run the tape. Then I had this horse immediately put into my horse watch. I went over this race on my podcast on the recap show and said he might be one that could pop at a big number. Look at these green and yellow silks in behind these horses. The rider, unfortunately, Patrick Husbands, he can't do anything. There's nowhere for him to go. Meanwhile, all these other horses are all out. Look at how close Savage Battle is. Stymied in behind horses, has absolutely no chance. What's he supposed to do? It's just one of those instances where the trip did not work out. By the way, he comes on at the end a little bit. He's going to be a massive price. He's 20-1 on the morning line. Rafael Hernandez picks up the mount here. Again, I'm not suggesting he is the likeliest of winners on Saturday at Woodbine. But at 20-1, you better believe I'm going to have some win money on him. I'll have some things around him. And then hopefully, later on, I can take whatever we get from Savage Battle and roll that into Wet Your Whistle and the Highlander. Again, a little bit different segment for best bets this week. Give you 2 horses up at Woodbine in graded stakes action. 10-1 and 20-1 on the morning line. Don't hold your breath on that 10-1 though on Wet Your Whistle. I could see him being half that. You might get pretty darn close to that 20-1 though on Savage Battle. I'd like to thank you for watching this week's edition of Out of the Gate, and as always, you can follow us on Twitter at DRF Video. You'll get all the latest and greatest that DRFTV has to offer. Just a little bit of a PSA. We will be off next week due to the 4th of July holiday, but we will be coming back the following week with a new edition of Out of the Gate as we get closer and closer to Saratoga and Del Mar. Until that time, best of luck when your horses break out of the gate.